Hello, thanks for tuning in to Town Meeting TV's general election coverage for General Election 2024. My name is Meghan and I am your host with Town Meeting Television. Tonight, this is part of ongoing coverage in advance of voting on November 5th, or you can go and vote now at your clerk's office. You can find all of our forums at cctv.org/general. And you can watch also on Town Meeting TV's YouTube page at youtube.com/townmeetingtv. On tonight's program, we're going to hear from 3 candidates running unopposed in generally the South Burlington district, but you're going to tell us a little bit more about that. For Chittenden 9, Chittenden 11, and Chittenden 12 in order, Emilie Krasnow, Brian Minier, and Martin Lalonde. And if you could just give me your opening statements, and we're going to start with Emilie, and we're going to give you a little extra time since we're unopposed. We're not going to hold too tightly to our time, or, I'll keep track, but we're not going to hold too tightly to the time. But give me an opening statement. Tell me what your district general boundaries are. And since you are all currently seated in the House, what's your committee and what committee do you expect to be on in the upcoming year since you're likely to get elected running unopposed? Great.
Yes.
Emilie, can we start?
Sure. Well, thanks so much for having us. It's great to be here with my colleagues this evening. I'm Emilie Krasnow, and I serve South Burlington's Chittenden 9 district, and I have lived there for almost 20 years now. I grew up in Charlotte and learned the importance of community and being a good neighbor, going door to door since the age of 7 with my dad when he was first elected. He served from 1994 to 1998, and when he passed away when I was very young, my sister was appointed to the seat and served 1 term. So I am the 3rd Krasnow to serve in the legislature, and the 3rd Krasnow to sit in House 58, which was really special to me and to my family, and continuing that legacy of service. In South Burlington, I consider myself a neighbor, volunteer. I volunteer at our food shelf every week. I'm a South Burlington Rotarian. I currently serve as the vice chair of South Burlington's Affordable Housing Trust Committee, and just you can find me at the dog park with my adopted dog, Ben, just chatting with neighbors. And in my professional life, I work for a New England-based nonprofit that helps folks who are previously incarcerated, have substance use disorder, or unhoused, find success and navigating jobs and employment. So it really goes well with the committee I serve on, which is the General and Housing Committee, and our portfolio is housing, but not land use, labor and union policies, as well as social justice, and then anything else that kind of doesn't have a home, we do. I also, in the legislature, serve as the co-chair of the Working Vermonters Caucus, so really bringing my experience as a young working Vermonter to the State House and advocating for those policies regularly. And I'm just excited to be here and looking forward to getting into some of the legislation that we've worked on and everywhere we have to go.
Thanks, Emilie. And Brian, let's hear from you. The same question, the opening statement, why are you running, what experience qualifies you, and since you're currently sitting in the House, what's your committee? And then tell us a little bit the boundaries of your district.
Sure, thanks. Brian Minier. I serve Chittenden 11, which is everything to the west of Dorset Street, everything to the north of Swift. My predecessor was John Kalaki for 4 years, and prior to him was Helen Head for, I think, 10 years. I serve on House Education, which I asked for. Heaven help me. Having served on the South Burlington School Board, I thought that experience would be relevant. And if I'm lucky, I get appointed to it again because there's a lot of unfinished business that I think everybody here knows about. So I went, I think, very excited to look at the problem of school construction, the backlog that we have in our facilities, and then obviously school finance has come up in the last 2 years as a very hot button issue, and I'm excited about dealing with both.
Great, thanks so much. Martin Lalonde.
Yeah, thank you for having us. So I've been serving in the legislature in my district for 10 years, so this will be my 11th and 12th year. And in all that time, I have been on the Judiciary Committee. For one term, I was a ranking member. For the last biennium, not the current biennium, I was in leadership as an assistant majority leader, and now I'm the chair of the Judiciary Committee and expect to be chairing the Judiciary Committee again this next biennium. I've also have experience on the education side. I was on the school board for 11 years. Part of that time served with Brian. I've managed to convince school board members to step up and move on to the legislature. And it's nice that Brian is running a second time, so he's not holding it against me.
No.
So we have Bridget Burkhart, who also I served with on the school board, who's running as well. But I'm in the legislature. The Judiciary Committee really focuses on public safety issue, access to justice, and a myriad of issues related to courts as well. So, and I'm also the chair of the House Ethics Panel. I'm on the Joint Justice Oversight Committee, which meets over the summer, looking at justice issues, including corrections issues, and judicial rules, which reviews rules and procedures on how the courts are run. My background is I am still licensed as an attorney, and I worked in the Department of Justice in D.C. for 12 years before we moved up here a little over 17 years ago.
Great, thanks so much. So we're going to jump right into the question that is on so many people's mind: property taxes and education. This year, many Vermonters see a double-digit increase in property taxes, and nearly a third of school budgets failed on town meeting day. How are you going to approach education funding reform and property taxes for the coming fiscal year? And Brian, we're going to start with you, not just because you were on the school board, but also because we're going to go in a circular order.
Sure.
So you're next in line, and then we'll continue.
And should I take about a minute or what?
Yeah, take about a minute and a half. Can
Okay.
you solve this problem in 90 seconds?
Yeah, I don't know why I
Thank
didn't last time, yeah. We also in South Burlington saw double-digit tax increases, just like just about everybody else in the state. Initially, it looked like taxes here were going to go up approximately 18%. We found a couple other sources of revenue to drop that down to 14%, but there's nobody here who thinks that's acceptable either. There are certainly ways to look for small efficiencies. One of these is that our House Education Committee put out a bill creating boards of cooperative educational services, BOCES. That will help for some sharing of resources between districts. You'll see some efficiencies there. I think there are ways to look at how health care for teachers is negotiated at the state level. Possibly we can make some gains there, which we have not seen in the past few years since those negotiations have gone from the local to the state level. We could consider going to a primarily income model over a property model, although I gather it's pretty hard to capture different kinds of income. I would need to look more at that. But the truth is, all of these are little ways of making things a little bit better. I think we're going to have to rethink entirely how education is delivered and what exactly we want from it to achieve the kind of results that we want.
And you have a couple more seconds
Sure.
on that one. How would you approach that idea of rethinking?
So it's tricky.
education?
One idea that's out there is to return to what's called the foundation model or the block grant model. I'm not sure that actually comports with the 1997 Brigham decision that looks for equity in Vermont education between different areas. Even if it does, I think that kind of strips down your education to the very basics. I'm not sure that's going to end up satisfying people, but that's one of the big ideas that's out there, is to return to what we had before.
Great, thanks so much. A return to what we had before. And so, Martin Lalonde, this question to you also on property taxes and education and how you're thinking about it.
Sure. In the first instance, I'm going to defer to the great work that they're going to be doing in the Education Committee and will continue to do and have done. So it's one of the most, we have a lot of really complicated problems to solve. And I think we've lacked leadership at the state level for as long as I've been in the legislature. The Agency of Education has been underfunded, and there really, sadly, has not been that kind of leadership from the administration related to public schools. but there are some more specific issues to look at. For instance, funding, having public dollars going to private schools. I think we need to pull that in somewhat. And I'm not suggesting that the academies such as Burn Burton and St. Johnsbury shouldn't be an important part of the education, but the private schools also should be required to be essentially public schools. They should have to do the same things as the public schools to the extent that they're taking public money. So that's one of the issues I think is very important. That also relates to whether public dollars should be going to religious schools, which our Constitution, it's in conflict with really the Supreme Court opinion in Meghan, which is an opinion out of Maine. We have in our Constitution says that there will not be money going to religious institutions. But that's not what the Supreme Court has said under the federal Constitution. And we have to work with that. We have to figure out how to work with that as well. But those are all kind of on the side. That's not going to be a huge difference. It is some difference. I think we have to look at how else we can fund schools. We have to look at where the efficiencies can be. We have to look at whether there can be consolidation of schools. And that's a really difficult topic to deal with because local control is really critical in the state, and to have schools closed in small locations is really difficult, but I think it's probably necessary.
Thanks so much. Emilie, the same question to you.
Sure. Well, I know that my neighbors don't have $10 extra a month sometimes, and we have put people, not we, but collectively, our state has put our constituents in very difficult positions. We knew that this was going to be a very difficult budgeting year from a perfect storm of a variety of factors, from healthcare costs to the pandemic, to school construction costs, you name it. But I know that this is not a sustainable path to continue. And I have told my constituents that I hope that they keep us accountable for when we go back. We have got to completely rework our funding formula that meets today's challenges. The current system is not a sustainable solution. To continue to Band-Aid is not going to work. As my colleagues have mentioned, there's a variety of ideas on the table, some small, some big, whether it be it from consolidation to the delivery of services. There's a commission that was part of the bill that we passed to look at these factors, to have stakeholders. But the thing that I like best about the commission is that they're going to be going to all 14 counties in the state and really hearing from the community. So I've been really keeping my constituents aware of how they can engage in that process, because I think those voices need to be brought to the table.
How do people engage in that process?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, the commission meets how often?
Well, it's been about 3-4 times now, so once a month call.
So once a month, folks can join in online and watch those meetings and participate, as well as they're going to be doing a tour of every county to really bring the unique experiences and perspectives of each community. And so we're definitely going to keep folks up to date when they head our way to our region. But I'm just collecting information from our constituents. I'm the daughter of 2 public educators and a product of our public school system here in Vermont. And there are a few things as important as our schools and our children and making sure they have the resources they need to thrive. But currently, our system is not working, and I hope that it is front and center and takes up a huge part of the first biennium when we're back.
And if I can, just to close Emilie's point, a lot of this information is on the Agency of Education website, and it can occasionally be difficult to navigate. If you find it difficult to navigate, contact your legislator. We can point you in the right place.
Great.
Local listening sessions, all that stuff.
Absolutely.
So I think we have your contact information up, or you can go to the Vermont Legislature webpage and type in the name of folks and get that contact information. We're going to move on to housing, and we have two questions really that relate to housing. One is on affordable housing and sort of the longer term build out of affordable housing, and one is talking about emergency shelter. And we can combine these questions right now together, but this is about how are you in the House going to look at the level of investment that's needed to support both long-term public housing, and then how are you thinking about the need to respond to emergency shelters? I know we've just had the motel voucher program shut down. We have at least 300 people on the streets in Chittenden County alone with that. And so we'll start with you, Martin Lalonde, and maybe if you want to just talk about how that aligns with your committee work or not, that would be helpful for folks. Thanks.
Yes, because I will, the details, Emilie Krasnow will definitely know, being on the committee, one of the committees that's really been dealing significantly with this. But in the realm of public safety, there are a lot of underlying factors that are leading to issues of increase in crime and increase in the communities not feeling safe. And one of them is the lack of housing. And I'm not saying that folks are homeless are going to be committing crimes necessarily, but that is one of the factors that can lead to increase in a feeling that there's not public safety. Even individuals who are homeless can often be more victimized as safe, well. Yeah. Right. So it's in a broader sense. So that's why, housing is extremely important for that. And housing, it connects to other issues as well. And I'm going to back up just a little bit outside of my committee, is with respect to education as well, obviously. And homelessness is really an important factor to deal with. There's something like 400 or 500 children who are going to be sleeping in tents and couch surfing who need those services. And those services often are going to be provided by the schools. And it's another driver, another pressure on the amount of money that we're spending on our schools through the education fund, is it's helping individuals in homelessness. So there's a lot of connections on the housing issues. So the other issue that I would throw out there is that we have an extraordinary number of second homes and homes that are being used for short-term rentals. And I think that we need to increase the revenue that we are receiving from those entities, because they're causing problems by, it's putting pressure on our housing stock. And that's money that we can use for education as well. So there's a lot.
Would be a secondary tax or a.
Right. Right now, oftentimes somebody with a second home could be taxed at a much lower rate than residents, and there's an incentive there. It's part of it. I'd like to see fewer, frankly, second homes. I know it's important. I'd like to see a lot of these homes that are being used for short-term rentals and second homes that are only used for a few weeks a year to be available to house people. And having a higher tax rate for them may be a disincentive, may lead to some more of these homes being available. So.
Interesting. Emilie?
Sure. Well, earlier you mentioned what keeps you up at night, and this is what keeps me up at night. This is what occupies my thoughts constantly. I ran for office and continue to run for office to try to have a hand in helping the housing crisis that is a public health emergency right now in our state. Again, we are not alone in Vermont. This is a nationwide crisis. But right now, we are absolutely failing people. There is no reason why people should be handed a tent and just say, that's all. These are failures. This is years in the making, and we have got to do better. So I'm really proud of the work that our committee did. We put forward a bill that passed the House to have a long-term sustainable plan and with solutions to help build more housing investments. And it's so important, as we see now and are going to be seeing, that we have immediate shelter and housing as well. So when folks say, well, we just have to build more housing, that is not enough. We need a yes and approach to housing. So yes, we absolutely need more units immediately. And we have seen a lot in my district. I have, hundreds of new affordable units that have gone online since I've been elected. And it's amazing. I love to knock those doors and welcome those folks to our community. I'm thrilled. But in the meantime, we have got to also prioritize people who have a bench as their home. That is unacceptable to me. And so until we take a multi-pronged approach to help people where they are now and make those investments in wraparound services, we're going to continue to see, and we have just started to see the mass exit now. In a week, it'll be far worse. It'll be a strain on our education system, our healthcare system, and our providers are completely burned out right now.
Healthcare providers, service providers, our law enforcement officers. I recently talked to folks in our South Burlington Police who go meet with folks who are unhoused in our community, and they're happy to talk to them, but then they can't offer them anything because there's nowhere for them to go. And what's the bill that you talked about, and will that bill come back this session, do you imagine?
So the House introduced a bill, the number's escaping me right now, that set forward a 10-year plan of investments, building housing, supporting, modernizing our hotel motel program, and unfortunately, it did not make it through the Senate. They had a different plan. We were put in, back to our hotel motel program situation, we were put in a very difficult situation of years of underfunding, and this was the deal that we got. And so, but it's unconscionable to me what is happening right now. And every day for my job and just working at the food shelf, I see people who have completely fallen through our system and need help. And so it is going to be my top policy priority when we go back, and maybe even now. Quickly, I was also appointed to serve on the Landlord-Tenant Study Committee, so I'm going to take a lot of time and look into how we can keep people in their homes, because we know that eviction process and other things, but really a balanced approach between landlord and tenant law. So I'm hoping that we can come up with a lot of different policy ideas that can really add and strengthen to the bills that we've already been working on.
Great, thanks. And just for folks who don't know, who may be listening at home, and correct me if I have this wrong, the legislature will take big issues like this and put forth study committees that will be sometimes stakeholders, sometimes legislators working on those throughout the season, starting before the legislative season begins in January. So that's what you're talking about with that committee. Brian Minier, your thoughts on housing and emergency shelters?
Yeah, I think my colleagues did a very good job covering most of what I'd like to talk about, so I'd just focus on two things, I guess. One is there seems to be this notion that if you just cut enough red tape, it's going to be easy. That's not true. I think we did a good job reforming.
Enough red tape for
building housing. Sorry, yes.
Yeah, thanks.
Yep. I think we did a decent job putting together a bill that actually reforms Act 250, allows for building where it's appropriate. At a certain point, though, you have to put your money where your mouth is. We have to fund this. And the original premise before this section was the House passed a budget that was going to put $100 million towards housing over 10 years. That is the scale that we're going to need. When that gets scaled back by the Senate or by the governor, you're not really serious about what we're talking about. Cutting red tape isn't going to get us there on its own. You have to finance this stuff. The other one is when I was first serving about 1.5 years ago, the governor addressed a joint session with the House and Senate together. And one of the things that he said that stuck with me is we have this last opportunity with federal stimulus money to do something. Don't just patch something, make it permanent. And instead, we didn't try to negotiate prices for these hotels. We didn't try to do anything more permanent in terms of shelter, emergency shelters or housing. Money, in my opinion, was flushed down this hotel program. And so that's a regret that's already passed. Now we have to take this money and build something more serious, which is not this hotel program.
Great, thanks so much. We're going to move on to the public safety and criminal justice question, and I'll read this one straight from our list of questions here. Public safety is a top priority for many voters in this election. This past session, lawmakers increased judicial staff, increased retail theft penalties, and expanded restorative justice practices in Vermont. What more do you think needs to be done by the legislature to advance public safety and repair Vermont's criminal justice system? And I think this is talking less about the feelings that people had and more to do with criminal justice reform and public safety. And we start with you, Brian, on this. No, I'm sorry. I think we start with you.
I think it's my turn, to start.
Is it? Would you like to start, Martin? Great,
Well, I
go
would like
ahead.
to start because this is
Great,
right.
super.
Yeah, this is.
Thanks.
Oh, you're going to say everything.
Yeah, well,
I concur.
no, probably not. So I think the first issue is recognizing that there are a lot of drivers to crime and to a feeling of not having public safety. And we already talked a little bit about the homelessness. I mean, poverty issues, mental health issues. There's an increase in mental health problems that we've had since the pandemic. Treatment is needed for that, as well as for addiction. So there's all these underlying drivers that are leading to the increase of the concern about public safety, and it's a real concern. I understand that people are feeling unsafe, that people are seeing a lot of activities in particular downtown Burlington, including retail theft, including drug use and such. But I'm at the end of in my committee, I'm kind of at the end of the line. It's like when those things haven't worked, people commit crimes
And we
and
wanna
people
separate.
feel unsafe.
Yeah.
So we are doing things to try to address that. And the main point is that there needs to be accountability for when somebody offends. And that does not necessarily mean that somebody needs to be incarcerated. If you get into the criminal justice system, and hopefully more people can get into the restorative justice system, which is a big thing that we worked on this past year. But there's probation, there's getting people into treatment, there's different kinds of accountability, but you need to have that. And right now, we don't have that because of the significant backlog in our courts. Misdemeanor can occur, and it can take a year and a half for a misdemeanor to be heard. And during that period of time, the individual is kind of in limbo somewhat, but also can often get into trouble and violate conditions of release, can commit more crimes. There's a lot of repeat offenders. In fact, it is a fairly small number of people who are doing a lot of the small petty crimes that we're seeing. So that's one thing. We put a lot of resources towards the criminal justice system this past year. We put extra money towards prosecutors, defenders, the courts, victim advocates, community justice centers, etc. It's going to take a little time. I mean, there's 4 judge positions, 3 new ones, 1 for a retired judge. They haven't been appointed yet. Just in the last couple weeks, recommendations were sent to the governor. So it takes time to bring those new judges on. And those new judges will take time to really hit their stride. More staff, more state's attorneys. So all that's going to take a little bit more time, but we did put resources towards that. And I think that's probably the critical thing we did. Yes, we have other offenses like repeat offenders for retail theft. Issues we dealt with drug crimes as well, and S58 is the name of that bill. So we did a lot there, and right now it's kind of not waiting, but pushing to make sure that we are getting on top of that issue. I'll just mention the community justice centers as well, that we have established a program that we're going to be rolling out, that's going to be rolled out statewide, something that's been very successful in South Burlington, has in the past been successful in Burlington, Williston, Essex, and that's pre-charge diversion. So law enforcement goes out, there's been an offense committed, but before they even send it to the state's attorney, they send it to the Community Justice Center through a restorative justice process, which actually has better outcomes as far as recidivism, better outcomes for victims as well. And those are usually low-level crimes, but that's something that takes the pressure off the courts as well. And I could talk another half hour easily
we
if you
obviously need a whole program on this. Emilie, we're going to get to you on this question.
Okay.
Because there's a lot here, but
There
go ahead.
is, and I will be brief. Well, we are all individual House districts, but we often act as a delegation. And we could not be more fortunate to have Martin, leading on these issues, because when I first ran, and Brian, we have a once a month forum at the library, and this was a really important topic to folks in our community. And we listened. We acted, and Martin talked about all the things we did. We took that really seriously this last session, and we put out some really, really strong legislation for public safety. And of course, there's more work to be done, but I'm really happy with a lot of the legislation that the House worked really hard on, that Martin and his committee led on. And so we did. And you know, as a young woman living in South Burlington, that's one of the things that attracted me to our community, was that I wanted to feel safe, and you know, my senior neighbors, and that we were all connected. And I do hear concerns still, and again, I spend a lot of time in Burlington and talking with folks, business owners, people, we mentioned folks who are unhoused who feel unsafe as well. So there is a lot more work to be done. I know that I continue to meet with folks all the time to talk about that and see how folks are feeling. But I am really proud of a lot of the work that the House did to address those concerns. We listened and acted this last session on public safety, and I'm really proud of that.
Great. Thank you so much. Brian?
Yeah, I'd like to go back once to something that Martin said, which is that restorative justice often is better both in terms of outcomes and in terms of how the victims feel afterwards. There's this notion out there that if we're tough on crime, if penalties are stricter, that's somehow going to help to end this problem. The truth is, a swift response is much more important than having some sort of draconian response. And I think back to, we had a retail theft meeting, maybe it was a year ago, with a retailer on Shelburne Road. Chief Burke was the primary host there, Sean Burke, our police chief. And he was asked by one of the business owners, you know, what more do you need, Chief? And he said, we're well-resourced enough. We have everything that we need. So the issue is not with the police. The issue is not with the penalties. The issue, again, goes back to this court backlog. And I guess the last thing I'll say is that I think some folks are apt to blame our state's attorney general for being too progressive. I don't think that's it either. It's just we need to get to these cases as quickly as we can.
We have a court backlog in large part because of COVID. Courts shut down.
Not just, it's not, it was before COVID as well, and it just exacerbated. Thank you.
Yeah.
Both ends.
That's the word. But I wonder if I can just hit a couple really other important points that on the public safety issue. And one is as far as...
but and we could do another show. But yes, be brief.
Yeah, I'll be brief. That I didn't get to what we're planning on doing next year, and that is, we do have to look at law enforcement a little bit more, the training for law enforcement. There is a continuing difficulty in recruitment and retention, and that's important. The other really important issue of what we did and what we will continue to do is domestic violence. Domestic violence is one of the toughest and most important issues to deal with as far as public safety. We can't lose that. And we did a number of really important bills this past session, and we will continue to do work on domestic violence as well.
Great, thanks. And we will have you back, as well as some other folks, when we do our Under the Dome series.
Great.
To review what is happening in the legislature. Also, we'll catch up with you probably as the session unwinds. We're going to move right into the lightning round and then do the closing questions. So we're going to go and we'll start with you, Emilie, on this first one, and then we'll go around. So in 10 seconds or less, it could be a yes or a no, but 10 seconds or less. Should private schools be funded with public dollars?
Public dollars, public rules, yes.
So yes, private schools should be funded with
No,
public,
sorry. Yes, public dollars should go to public schools.
Got it, great. Should private schools be funded with public dollars? This is not supposed to be a trick question, I'm sorry, yes.
I do not think so. I think public dollars in public schools, I'll make an exception for the 4 traditional academies, and I do think that our therapeutic academies are important for kids on IEPs and 504s, but to put it quickly, public dollars, public schools.
What Brian said.
Okay, great. Do you support raising the age of family court jurisdiction?
I don't honestly understand the question, so I cannot answer.
I think there was the raise the age, and it was from 21 to 25, if I have it right.
No, it would allow 19-year-olds and under being in family court.
Okay,
that's
and then
where it
the
stops.
idea is that to maybe have that go up over time.
No, the going up would be up to 19.
Okay,
right
got
now
it.
It's 18 and under. It would go to 19 and under starting in April of 2025.
So do you support raising the
Then
age?
yes, with that understanding, yes, I do.
Great, thanks.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, great. Should biomass play a role in emissions reduction strategies?
Absolutely. Anything that works, let's do it. Yes.
I don't know enough about that one, but I'm suspecting politically yes.
Burning wood.
Right. No, I know. I believe that we have to really look carefully at how we make a plan to transition off it, but for now, yes.
Do you support a statewide ban on assault weapons?
Not at this time, because we need to see what the Supreme Court's going to do with some cases that are moving towards the Supreme Court that look at that very issue of whether that would be constitutional. And I
Is that
expect to
because
see
you're
that.
concerned about a lawsuit or because?
I don't want to put or have put a bunch of work in a very difficult topic if there's a good chance it's going to be held unconstitutional. And we're going to have that answer fairly soon.
Thanks, Emily.
So generally, yes, but I defer to Martin on his expertise, and but I do hope that we look at that next session.
Brian?
No, I don't. Safe storage, yes. Red flag laws, yes. Waiting periods, yes. All of which Martin's group has been looking at, but a ban, no.
Okay. Should legislators be paid more?
Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely, yes.
Do you support banning or limiting cell phone use in schools? Emily?
So I have been paying close attention to this topic. I, at this moment, want to talk more about limiting.
Okay. Brian?
I would support as close to a ban as we can get. I think every educator will tell you the same. It's mostly parents who want to be in touch with their students, and I understand it, but education is more important.
I'm with Brian again.
Okay, great, thanks. So yes, you support banning or limiting. Great.
Yes.
And then Brian, where do you get your news?
I go mostly local. I don't use national sources much. So Vermont Digger, 7 Days, Vermont Daily Chronicle, VPOVT.
Yes, the same. The VT Digger, the Vermont Public,
Yeah.
7 Days, local, our other paper, which is a very good weekly
Yeah.
as well,
Yeah.
and Front Porch Farm as well.
Yeah.
I mean, besides CCTV,
I
of
would,
course.
you know, you took my answer.
When I watch things, of course.
Yeah.
As I told you, I do watch CCTV every day.
All the time.
All the time.
Yes.
They know. But also, I, as a millennial, I love to get it on social media and also VT Digger, Vermont Public, Front Porch Forum, all the avenues.
Yeah. Do you ride the bus?
No, but should. Well, I don't have a bus stop anywhere near where I live.
No.
If I did,
No, and I do want to bring up that I hope that we continue to talk about our Green Mountain Transit and how important the bus is to our constituents
Yes.
moving
Yep.
forward.
yes.
Brian, do you ride the bus?
Only seldom. I used to much more when I didn't have a parking place at work. Now I do.
And then just to be friendly, what's your favorite ice cream in Vermont?
Oh, maple creamy, easy.
Oh, that's such a Vermont answer. But Cherry Garcia.
Oh.
Yeah.
Ooh, well, I also love Ben and Jerry's, but I'm going to give a shout out to Sisters of Anarchy in South Burlington.
Oh, nice.
It's so good.
Very good. Very
Awesome.
good.
So we're gonna wrap up, and if there's something that you want, I know we didn't get into progressive tax initiatives, immigration, climate change, political temperature. So now is your time to do a closing statement and maybe just elevate something that one of your fellow legislators here said, or elevate something that you think is most important for folks to hear from you. And we will start with you, Brian, on this,
Sure.
and then we'll end with you, Emily. Great, thanks.
Just because it's one of the things that we haven't talked about, and it's of interest to me, this political temperature question is an important one. I think it's going to get very heated in this country, a wild prediction, I know, over the next couple of months. We have a tradition of being much more civil and dealing with each other with a much more comity, not comedy, in the State House. And one of the things that I've really liked about my committee, the Education Committee, is that we do have 3 Republicans out of 12 of us on there. Some of the best information that I get, some of the best hashing out of ideas that I have is with these Republicans who are willing to come over and talk reasonably and in a centrist way about what we can do. And if we're going to do anything on this education problem, which I view, along with housing, as 2 of our biggest, we're going to have to come together, and sometimes good ideas come from the other side of the aisle.
And you're having that experience in the legislature right now of people being able to communicate across political differences.
Yes, yes, almost entirely.
Great, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, it's really not a polarized environment, which has been great. I don't know if I'd keep on doing it if it was like the national level. But yeah, the tri-parties, we work really well together. But what I'd like to also elevate is the work that we've been doing on climate issues. And we've done a lot of really important work the last couple bienniums. Following the Global Solutions Act, Global Warming Solutions Act, this past biennium, I'm going to get all the things wrong, but we have the Affordable Heat Act, which is hopefully transitioning people to more stable priced energy for heating their homes, but also reducing the carbon output from our heating area. So the other is the renewable energy standard and also the climate super fund. So and the flood act. What's it called? The Flood Reduction Act, Flood Safety Act. And so looking at trying to do our part to reduce carbon, but also recognizing we have to do other things to help address the storms that we're going to keep on seeing, and we've kind of looked at it both areas.
Well, and to offer subsidies to those who aren't able to afford these technologies on their own, right?
Right.
Yeah.
That's the
And if those, I'm just out of, like, there's a lot of acts.
right.
So if there's something there that you think is most important for constituents to be paying attention to, because it's going to help them out, because it's going to help their
Sure.
businesses out, what would you elevate, and how would they find out about it?
So I think in South Burlington it's interesting because we have natural gas, and the Affordable Heat Act doesn't affect that as much because we're already well regulated there. Beyond South Burlington, the Affordable Heat Act is very important. We have quite a ways to go on that still. There's still rules that are coming out. The legislature still has to act on that. But the bottom line goal there is to help low-income individuals get more affordable heating of their homes. So I think that statewide is very important. But so is, they're all parts of the puzzle. Getting more renewable energy in Vermont is very critical as well. We need to do our part there. Hopefully making oil companies pay for the resilience that we need to have, the damage that they've done through the Climate Super Fund is another thing. But that we're not going to know if that's going to work for another few years because there's a long time frame for that.
Great. Thanks, Emilie. Your thoughts?
Yeah.
What you want to elevate?
Well, a couple things. I do really appreciate touching on climate and would love to expand on that more at some point. We know that if we don't aggressively focus on climate action, we won't have anything that we talked about. It is the most important existential threat of our lives. My entire life, I have grown up with climate anxiety now, so it's really important to me and our generation forward. But what I do want to focus on is our next generation. So one of the greatest honors of serving is being able to talk to the next generation about getting involved in civic engagement and learning about our systems of government and volunteering and being a part of the community. Because I can tell you that as someone who volunteers a lot, it's an aging group. And so going into high schools and colleges and talking about you too can spend, if you spend 1 hour a month just doing something for your community or helping a neighbor, it can have a huge impact. So just breaking it down to a small level ask or task for someone in their teens it can be really helpful. I'm so lucky that I have a lot of younger folks reach out to me and want to get involved, and I'm inspired by them as much as I can be. So folks who have joined my campaign to door knock and talk to their friends and neighbors and parents, it's just been really an amazing thing to see our generation really step up, and on a national climate, we are seeing great threats to our existence, be it climate, our reproductive rights, or our democracy. Our very democracy is under attack right now. So just our next generation stepping up, paying attention, getting involved, voting has just been a huge part of what I love about this job, and I hope to continue to do that.
Great. Well, thank you all for joining us tonight, and thank you all for watching. If you would like to watch more forums like this, you can tune into cctv.org, /general, and that will bring you to all of the forums in Chittenden County, as well as our statewide forums and some local ballot initiatives that we'll be covering in Burlington and in Williston. You can contact your clerk about how to obtain a ballot before Election Day, and that is, Election Day is November 5th. The polls will be open to 7 to 7. And as you know, there's not just a national election, there is a local election, which is really where all the decision making happens about what is going to, how your life is going to be run in this community. So thanks for watching, and thank you all for joining us
Thank you.
here on
Thank you.
Town Meeting TV.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.